And in the bottom right, in the blue of the Platinum Heroes, it's Goblin.
And up at the top left, we have our red Terran player from Mouse Sports. He is HeRoMaRinE. Yeah, I did hear that, I think we talked about this yesterday, that the Mickey Mouse, like the oldest version of Mickey Mouse, the copyright on that, actually, you know what? I was going to meme around for a little bit about how the copyright was expiring next year on Mickey Mouse, and Mouse Sports could change their logo if they want to and all that stuff because it's going to go into public domain. But we do have a proxy rack, so I feel like it's worth addressing and just talking about, even though this isn't the like two proxy racks, like, or racks at home with the proxy racks on the other side of the map. This is like a more chill version, but we should definitely talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, this is shades of last year's Katowice, right? Where this was the meta. You, the Protoss or the Terran player is going to proxy their Reaper. And is it going to be like right outside their natural? Sure, maybe. Is it going to be on the middle of the map? Okay, maybe. Is it going to be outside of the Protoss natural? Sure. And it's just different levels of investment, but you're going to see something proxied on the map. And it's just really up to the Protoss to figure out how you're going to make it happen. And in a matchup where I think HeRoMaRinE is somewhat justifiably of the opinion that he is very favored. In fact, he's 18-1 head-to-head all time. Yeah, you do something a little bit. You make Goblin think. You don't give him the comfort of a normal game.
Yeah, I'm definitely on board with that. I think HeRoMaRinE's quite good about doing those kind of things. Already picks off that first probe, but the shield battery has already been started on up. The kind of funny thing here is that the shield battery is not exactly in a super safe spot against the bunker. So I am a little bit worried here for Goblin. The bunker should absolutely finish on up over here. And now there's kind of this game that Goblin will have to play of, all right, if you start targeting down my shield battery, this does get a little bit dangerous for me, especially with another Reaper coming on forward, this extra DPS over here. So shield battery ends up dying, but is he also going to actually be able to take out the bunker in any kind of reasonable amount of time?
I mean, getting that SCV down, and especially with the second Stalker here, okay, KD8 charge to kill the rest of it, but you're fine now. Like, the bunker is now burning, it's going to go down. Reapers try to sally forward, but this is, oh, he's going to get the, oh, he doesn't. Reapers pop out to make sure the salvage completes. Well done, HeRoMaRinE.
Yeah, very, very well done there. I think HeRoMaRinE's still going to be okay overall with how things end up trading out over there. Not exactly like, say, perfect, but definitely still got a little bit of value out of it. Again, it's like a little bit of that delayed mining time for that natural. It's the fact that he forces out a shield battery that he even ends up killing over there, killing off a probe, killing off a second probe for the scout and everything that's on the other side of the map. Because back at home, that's all just like annoying harassment stuff. It's about also having the follow-ups and everything that are getting set up behind it with the double gas.
Yeah, and this would not be a Goblin game, by the way, if we didn't have Phoenix on the way.
Oh, of course not.
Actually, you know what? That's not quite fair to Goblin. His repertoire of builds has absolutely expanded over the last year or so. He's no longer just Phoenix ride or die that he was when he first kind of started to make his way up, and, you know, that's fine. But as we're talking about this, we're talking about, oh, you know, Goblin's going Phoenix play. HeRoMaRinE's got to be the favorite. We can't forget, Goblin, you know, he topped his group in DreamHack in the last season of DreamHack last year. He went like 5-1. And it's easy to say, yeah, you know, he's maybe not the best. I mean, I think in this game, he's still pretty even. But we do have to give him that credit, right? He is, I think, a little bit better in this matchup than we've kind of been giving him credit for the first couple minutes.
Yeah, I think Goblin's, and this is kind of going back to what we were saying like before the series and stuff. I think Goblin is actually quite capable of defeating HeRoMaRinE, even if he is the underdog here. And he's quite good with Phoenix for sure, even if he is able to do some other stuff. This is already kind of a nice little start over here, especially since the Cyclones can just get picked up by the Phoenix. He's going to actually go for the kill on one of the Cyclones and a kill on the Raven. Auto turret gets dropped down, but outside of just killing or doing some damage to a Phoenix, I think Goblin's going to be extremely happy with these trades.
Man, this is so nice here. It's only one Cyclone remaining. The Raven goes down, so any sort of follow-up big gate push, I mean, good luck. Lock-on is nice and does last a long time, but it's 3 dead SCVs on top of everything else. And Goblin behind this, third base on the way. He's adding more Phoenix. I'm looking to see what his tech transition is going to be, because it does feel like you'd like to see a Robo, Templar Archives, something like that. But for right now, this pressure he's getting, I mean, you don't want to lose that soccer, certainly, but this pressure he's getting on the map is pretty effective.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he still has a nice little window before Stim or Combat Shields or anything else finishes up, and that's kind of like the really big first scary moment here. But he even dives into the main base, picks up 3 more SCVs, is gonna again take some more damage over here on the Phoenix, but he lifts up the Cyclone, is gonna be able to get it very, very low on hit points, but does not quite finish it off, just barely misses that out. And if he was able to get that, that actually would have been big, but unfortunate he misses out on the final couple of hits on that.
I love the bait though on that, right? Like you would think he would go circle back, lift to break the lock on, right? Makes sense. But no, he allows the lock on to complete, which brings the Cyclone to the edge of the base, which means Marines are very slow. They don't have stim, right? They're going to be very slow in following. And that meant he had the entire lift duration to try to kill that Cyclone before the Marines arrive. And he didn't get it, but it shows such just a skill level with this Phoenix play. He does have to be careful though, because this push, it's a Cyclone, there are Marines, there's Stim. Is that a HeRoMaRinE in that medevac? Maybe. Yeah, there is, but gets a lift off, gets a Marine. Phoenix gets out. But you have to be worried about this push. If your entire army is Phoenix play, this army is very, very good at dealing with that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no third base or anything on the way here for HeRoMaRinE. This is a pretty committed attack, and that's the reason why additional shield batteries are being thrown down. That's the reason why he's trying to chrono boost out that first Colossus, because the first Colossus can do wonders against this kind of push. But it's not here just yet. It's running over from the main base over to this third base location. Actually, no, it's just sitting on the ramp. I don't know if that's intentional, and I imagine he'd want to have that with this attack, and he is going to rally it forward.
Yeah, I think that's just the idea of having something on the high ground in case Big Gabe decides to just run into the natural and avoid all the static defense. It makes some level of sense to me. Whoa, there's HeRoMaRinE looking for the shot, not going to find it. Oh, on the army. Okay, you'll take that one instead. One Phoenix will fall. A couple Marines on the chase, and that is part of what makes Phoenix play so scary. It's really hard to run away. That being said, there is no charge on the map right now. We don't even have a Twilight. So yeah, the Phoenix can chase, but we don't have hordes and hordes of zealots running through on top of that and making it really hard for the Terran to run away. Regardless though, the key thing here you talked about, third base coming in from Big Gabe, it's pretty late. Just about done right now, the 8-minute mark. I mean, Goblin has been mining out of his for quite a while, and the tech continues to increase. He's gonna have 3 Colossus out by the time the next level of the push happens. Extended Thermal Lance. The one thing he's lacking is, HeRoMaRiNE's gonna get a big shot off there. This is actually a lot of Phoenix going down. Oh no, Goblin, that's not what you want. And another one.
That last one also a bit painful, but he doesn't end up losing any more Phoenix. At least it just softens up his army, but it means it's softened up for these Marines to finish off another one of the Phoenix. Suddenly the Phoenix kind of looking a lot lower, and I mean, that was one of the big advantages that Goblin basically had come into through like that kind of mid-game stage. He did manage to get up a nice fast third base and stuff, but I think that's pretty expected for Protoss players these days in the meta. Having a bit of that map control, disincentivizing drops and kind of counterplay and stuff was a big part of this, and also just protecting the Colossus. Now, Goblin has given up a lot of that advantage. He still does have enough Phoenix to sort of protect against a couple of volleys, but it's going to be a much tougher situation, whereas before, I actually think he did have an advantage.
Yeah, I think if he keeps those, 4 Phoenix he lost in the last fight together, he might actually have a pretty strong pushing window, and he's going to try to go for it right now anyways, or at least kind of posture. Oh, he's going to try to, look at this, he's baiting with the Phoenix. He says, yes, come on forward, deal with me, but he's got an army on the high ground that he looks to jump on top of. But it's not going to work out, not just yet. One HeRoMaRinE will go down, and that's something. That was a fancy little idea there, Goblin. Just hold the high ground, use the Phoenix to bait in. But it does still seem like he wants to go for this. Charge is not done. 1-1 is not done. It feels like a bit of an anti-timing right now, but he seems somewhat convinced that his army can fight.
Yeah, and he's got an observer in a really, really nice position that I like. He's going to be able to continue to keep an eye out on that army at a very annoying kind of angle, and a very, very useful angle, because he can know when he needs to rotate from like the south side of that third base to the top, like north east side. Yes, I'm good with cardinal directions. Yes, and being able to identify where he wants to be, because all of that before, that was posturing. This is actually where he is interested in attacking. He's got his Templar Archives finishing up with the Archons. 1-1 is about to finish up. Thermal Lance is finished up. Charge is finished up. This is the time where Goblin is actually hitting his real power spike, and where he is actually interested in doing a fight.
And remember here as well, HeRoMaRinE was very slow into his armory, so any sort of upgrade lead that he had, again, he was 1-1 much quicker. That doesn't exist anymore. Upgrades now for Goblin are done. It's going to be interesting to see when he starts to move into, his 2-2 or how much he commits to this timing. But, with Hallucinated Colossus, a couple Archons, you're right, it does seem like he wants to move in just about now, pretty much as he's maxed out. But this is a tough fight to move into. There are 3 ghosts here. There's a bunker on the high ground, but for now, Goblin comes flooding down the ramp. Zealots on top. EMP's on this army, and the Vikings, for now, they're going to get some decent shots off. Again, a second level of EMPs on the army here. And moving forward, Goblin is not going to be able to find his way up the ramp. Even with the Fake Colossus, it's not going to be enough.
Yeah, HeRoMaRinE is so good about picking the right fights over here. He is going to have a bit of a concave advantage as well. Vikings are fighting against those Phoenix. The Phoenix are holding the line for a while. The 2 Colossus in the back lines able to actually get some pretty decent trades as well. If Goblin had one more reinforcing round of Zealots, just immediately backing this up, I actually think he maybe could have pushed up the high ground, but the War Prism had to catch up. It had to go back into Prism mode. It had to warp in some more units. Then those high top will have to turn into Archons. So I think HeRoMaRinE is getting a little bit more time to get out another round of Ghosts, another round of these Vikings, and that may actually make the difference here on him being able to hold.
I like the idea of Goblin just pushing a little bit here, keeping HeRoMaRinE honest, keeping him pressured while he does have that 4th base, while he does maybe probe that up, and more importantly, while he buys time for his upgrades to complete, because we are seeing one of the benefits of the change. I mean, his 1-1 finished, a minute ago? He's been spending chronos, I assume, on the forges here, so he's going to have a really solid timing when he has his 2-2, when he moves on up to 3 or 4 Colossus once again. And in the meantime, HeRoMaRinE, he's got his 4th command center on the way now. But Goblin has technically had that 4th base for quite a while. The problem is, he's only on 63 probes. He has not been probing behind this. He's not really been developing this economic advantage that we would expect with a, being up a base.
Yeah, it's going to become a bit of an awkward situation in that regard. But, I mean, if HeRoMaRinE is not really able to establish the ground to take into expansion and stuff, I totally agree that I think Goblin will be able to actually take advantage of being up a base, and he will be able to capitalize on all that stuff. And it's all about being able to control a little bit of that space. The medevac drop, though, coming on in. How is Goblin going to be able to react to it? He is fully maxed out, so he needs to take a fight if he wants to be able to warp in back at home. Almost forced to be offensive in order to be defensive right now.
Yeah, those EMPs are massive. We saw Archon just evaporate immediately, and you just can't take this fight if you're Goblin, certainly not when you're distracted. So he tries to save the Colossus here, but the Viking count is just so massive. Imagine how if you had anything else, but even still, Zealots, they're going to run forward. And you know what? Upgrades are really carrying the day here. The Zealots are not going down. Yeah, the Colossus have died, but now the Vikings, they land, they get knocked out immediately. HeRoMaRinE needs something on the defense, and he didn't get all the Colossus with the Vikings. So yeah, that drop found value. It seems like Goblin has cleaned it up now, but the SCVs have to get pulled here. And Goblin, this Colossus, these Archons, they're doing so much work. 18 SCVs hit the deck. And as Goblin kites backwards here, more Zealots are going to try to join the fray. It's still an upgrade down, and Goblin seems to have everything that he needs to run right on through.
He is absolutely storming through the army right now. Even if Goblin gets pushed back at this point, and there's only one big power unit in this army, it's the Colossus, the single Colossus that's putting in absurd amounts of work. He's already done the damage that he needs. He's killed off 25 of those workers. He's continuing still to be able to push in and kill even more workers that were transferring over to that 4th base location. Goblin looks like he may very well have already done it. Link completes finally, so these stalkers are going to be able to find a little bit more value as well. 3-3 halfway done, but he's not even going to need it. Goblin takes the first game, pulling off an upset against Big Gabe.
And this series is not over yet, Fear Dragon.
Yeah.
Certainly not, but do you know what Aligulac said? That Goblin's win chance was? Like, chance to win the series? It was like,
what was it?
7%.
That's wild to me. I know that Big Gabe, all right, so there's 2 factors on that. One is that it's HeRoMaRinE, and 2, it's that HeRoMaRinE specifically in TVP is an absolute killer. He is so good at TVP. But even then, I feel like that's underselling Goblin a little bit. That's like a little bit mean to Goblin, Aligulac.
I mean, in fairness, what was it? HeRoMaRinE was like 17-1 against Goblin all time, something like that. It is like Goblin has won it. No, it's 18-1. Yeah, 93% chance HeRoMaRinE victory. Goblin has won 1 series against HeRoMaRinE in Legacy of the Void. So, is it that weird? Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, hey, like, at the end of the day, I can't really say, oh, it's so biased or anything. Like, Ligulac is giving numbers. It has a numerical computation on what it's doing. So I'm not obviously trying to actually throw shade at anyone. But you know what? If I had to do it, I would have maybe said, like, at worst 70-30 or something. Like 70% chance for HeRoMaRinE, 30% chance for Goblin or something. So I don't know. I'm really happy to see Goblin is showing up here in game number 1. It's also a lot easier for me to make that claim because Goblin's already up 1-0.
And well, the thing is also is if there is a map in the pool. By the way, what is map 3 potentially? Let me take a look here, because if there is a map that HeRoMaRinE I think is least likely to win, it's going to be like Gressfon or Altitude or something like that. A map that is just so far to run across. And actually, this is really good news for Goblin here by taking Gressfon, even if he doesn't win Dragon Scales, which is, you know, probably it's a very good Terran map. Of course, Goblin did ban out Babylon and Royal Blood. Even if he doesn't win the Terran map in this best of 3 map pool, he's got Altitude for map 3. And Altitude, you know, it's a pretty big map. If you are going to rely on your ability to just hold out and sustain against this big gate push, an extra 5 seconds may make the difference. But you know what also makes the difference? Game 2. And in the upper left, in the red, he's down a game to the surprise of many from Now Sports, HeRoMaRinE.
Down near the bottom right-hand side of the map, the blue Protoss player is currently up 1-0. Could he turn it into a 2-0? Could he change the way that this entire Swiss format seeding stage works? This Goblin. That would be absolutely wild. Can you imagine if, all right, so stick with me here. Everyone, I think, for the most part, with the Swiss format, round stuff goes, you're supposed to play against players who are of a relatively similar score as you. I think most people were expecting HeRoMaRinE to be up there with Clem and Max Pax and Raynor and like even Cyril and a laser and stuff in the other group. I think most people expected HeRoMaRinE would be one of the 2-0 players and would actually have a pretty sick, sweet run. Round 3 to end up playing against someone that was like a Raynor or a Max Pax or something. If Goblin manages to win this game, though, suddenly Goblin is actually replacing HeRoMaRinE as that 2-0 player, sitting pretty close to the top of the group. And he would actually be that one that's playing around that level. And HeRoMaRinE would be the one that would actually be in not necessarily a ton of trouble, but like a little bit more trouble sitting at a 1-1 series score.
Yeah. And by the way, just because I was curious, we can pull this up again as Probe will go down. Given the fact that Goblin's up 1, Ligulac still says it's 70-30. So, you know, I'm not as good as that game 1 was for Goblin. He hit his timings well. He did a good job defending against pressure. He got a lot of value with those Phoenix early on, and that counter pressure with the 3 Stalkers and the Phoenix was fantastic. It's easy to just say, wow, you know, we're hype here on Goblin. We're getting ourselves new jobbers so we can support the gobbers. But it's still HeRoMaRinE, right? It is still the best TVP in Europe by a wide margin.
Yeah, and I think you're right to call that out, and also just to mention that there were a few things that HeRoMaRinE made decisions on that I won't even, like, it's not that they're wrong decisions or anything. It's literally just he was taking some calculated risks, and those risks did not pay off. For example, doing the proxy Reaper and stuff, it got a bit of damage done and stuff, and it did delay things, but it wasn't exactly like, it is going to also set you a little bit behind on, say, your additional barracks production, things along those lines. Goblin was able to take advantage of that by being a little bit more aggressive forward a bit earlier on with like the Phoenix and stuff. And even other things like delaying his 2-2 upgrades. HeRoMaRiNE's putting himself in a very all-in position. So those little things definitely do add up and do contribute to Goblin's ability to win that first game. We're gonna take a look at the second game now, as the Reapers, the Hellions, are gonna be able to try and swing on past these defenses. Can Goblin mount the defenses in time, as one of the Adepts already ends up falling, but so does the Hellion.
I really like the body blocking there. So 3 Reapers are going to show up in the main. Eventually there we go, the Hellion goes down. And 3 Reapers, they're not, I mean, they are damage potential. We see 4 probes hitting the deck here. but they're not going to one-shot, right? So even still, though, a good micro here. 5 workers go down, and I feel like Goblin was hoping that the shield battery would do more. But 5 probes hit the deck, and that's despite some really nice body blocking, the ability to kill the Hellions. And now Goblin, he is going to put himself in a little bit of an awkward position. I mean, 5 probes this early on. He's only up 4 workers on the Terran. That got exactly what HeRoMaRinE was looking for. The question, though, as we saw in game number 1, does the Phoenix Stalker counterattack, or I guess in this case just the Phoenix counterattack, can it equalize? Oh, well, not with the Widowmine hitting it.
Ooh. That would have been pretty dangerous, but does manage to survive that, because remember, the Viking is also made because the Widowmine doesn't kill the Phoenix, but it brings it near death. The Viking is there to basically secure the kill. So that was kind of the setup there for HeRoMaRinE. Doesn't end up actually getting that kind of final jab and kill on any of the Phoenix. So good control from Goblin, being able to keep everything alive, finds the Reaper as well, which shuts down a little bit of the scouting information and everything. I think it's obviously not an amazing start. You don't want to lose 5 workers, obviously, but I think it's definitely still a pretty okay-ish spot that Goblin can definitely bounce back from.
I mean, I'm actually really worried about Goblin right now. He's got charge on the way. That's fine. He does not have a third base, but Big Gabe is going for the patented push right now. He got a worker damage. Goblin has 3 warp gates. Any more in production? No. So it's 3 gate. His charge is halfway done, but it's really... that's kind of far away, and Gabe is just going to look to move in. But hey, if you knock down some of this tech really early on, that could be rather nice. Cyclone is going to get saved last second, and the second one also gets really not much damage taken at all, but it does buy time. And this is time for more Zealots to warp in, for more Stalkers to warp in, for there to be a shield battery up, and we've actually only still have the 1, but it does buy time for charge. I think that's going to be the key upgrade here is the Phoenix. They're just looking for reinforcements. They're going to find a Cyclone. That ain't bad.
Yeah, HeRoMaRinE's going to try and push on further forward. You're definitely right to call out the shield battery positioning, where it is very far back. It's in an awkward spot. And even the pylon is actually quite far forward, and that is going to be a potential target over here. The shield battery overcharge comes out to heal up the pylon. The reinforcements continue to be picked off. But that also means that those Phoenix are not here to help push back the actual attack. So Goblin is relying on gateway units mostly for that. He has been able to finally kill off enough units, and HeRoMaRinE feels he needs to back on off. And Goblin, during all this, somehow managed to sneak up a proxy gateway in the top right-hand side. His Phoenix are all still alive for the most part. He really didn't end up losing too many of them. He's finding some of these Marines in the center of the map. He's going to be getting additional pickoffs. He's going for a big follow-up attack over here. This could actually be it for Goblin.
And remember, HeRoMaRinE does not know that charge is done until about right now. This could have been some sort of Colossus play, right? He didn't see the lack of a robo. So Goblin is going to run across the map. He's got, okay, I thought that was, yeah, he's going to have 6 gate charge and a bunch of Phoenix here. So this tank is not going to be all that useful. They're going to look to run in right now. This SimCity is fantastic for HeRoMaRinE, but you need to have something behind it. So for now, the Vikings are doing what they can. The tank is not lifted. He hasn't lifted the tank. 9 SCVs hit the deck, but that tank gets some heavy damage down. And Goblin, does he go again?
Yeah, the tank, I believe, I could be wrong about this, but I think one Phoenix lifted the tank and it was very quickly taken out over there. So you're absolutely right. The tank got a ton of damage done on those Zealots. Although some of it, you're right, also was friendly fire, because a lot of workers went down as they were just trying to hold position against the Zealot. It's an interesting trade, though, because during all this, right before the attack even began, Goblin threw down a third base. And that third base is kind of interesting because he's not probing up, but he's also not trying to sell a story or anything, right? He basically had already revealed what he was doing at that point. Charge was revealed. He was on the other side of the map. He was about to attack in. HeRoMaRinE had no vision. The only reason you go for that third base is if you are kind of doubling back and saying, all right, I do want to just make sure I have a transition set up, that I don't have to end the game right here. So I do wonder, was the damage he did enough to still just be okay with the situation?
That's a really good question. I did appreciate the attempt to just try to, that's exactly what he's doing. He's just trying to bait this army out a little bit. The Widowmine gets a great shot. There's just not enough Zealots here. I don't like this nearly as much as I would have like a minute ago. Tank gets lifted and just the Phoenix get gunned down immediately. Goblin has overstepped his hand just a little bit. I like the idea a minute ago when HeRoMaRinE was still reeling. We saw the third base try to get taken, and Goblin's like, yeah, I got Phoenix, come on out, go kill the Phoenix. And then you sweep in from behind, but a massive Widowmine shot. And honestly, pretty small army. Means that Goblin, he just throws everything away. And at this point, I don't really know what he's supposed to do.
Yeah, 7 or 8 zealots or 9 zealots, it's definitely helpful, but these are really going to have, I feel like, a hard time taking the fight against the Marines and the Bioforce. If they get into a nice angle with +1 weapons, you should be able to kill it quite quickly. The Phoenix doing a great job lifting up the Marauders, though, really making it a lot more difficult. Still, the Marines in this choke point are able to take out the remaining zealots, and that is just a bit too much. HeRoMaRinE ties up the series 1-1 in a split second where Goblin just overcommits a bit. HeRoMaRinE jumps on the opportunity.
Yeah, I liked the idea. Again, we were talking about it. Bait out with the Phoenix. If the Terran moves out, you swallow him. You just surround him, and if not, okay, well that's fine. But you have to keep. If you want to do that a minute later, you need 2 or 3 more rounds of warp-ins. You can't just assume that the army that would beat what the Terran has defensively at minute 8 is going to beat him at minute 9 if you have the same amount of stuff. And I understand, Goblin, he had a forge on the way. He was getting extra upgrades. He was probing up his 3rd. Those are things that are expensive. But if you're going to do that, don't hit with like 5 zealots and 3 stalkers. It's not going to work out. And then HeRoMaRinE, I mean, good killer instinct. He realizes that his opponent just kind of threw his army away, so might as well go kill him, right?
Yeah, no, I'm 100% with you. And Goblin, maybe part of his reasoning there was that he was pretty committed. He did have a 3rd base on the way, and we talked about that and stuff, but at the same time, he didn't really do the damage he wanted to, and he stopped probing. He was on 48 workers at the very end, at the beginning of the fight and the end of the fight. He was just still sitting on the same worker count, so maybe he felt like his army was just not going to scale. He didn't have his other actual tech transition stuff set up, so he had to force a fight. But I am still with you. I think that there was very few worlds where that fight actually goes so well for him with those kind of like trades and stuff. So
yeah,
it's a tough call, but at the end of the day, we can for sure say that HeRoMaRinE got the better end of that.
Yeah, and going back even a little further, I know you said I think he lifted a tank and it got gunned down immediately when Goblin was trying to push through. If Goblin had just lifted the tank again, because he definitely had Phoenix that were firing in the sky, maybe he pushes through there. I think there were a lot of opportunities for Goblin to take that game number 2. Maybe I'm riding the hopium a little bit too high. I don't know. We have arguably the best map for Goblin, at least in this best of 3 map pool. It's Altitude, map 3. And the bottom left in the red. He ties it up game number 2 with Swift Vengeance. HeRoMaRinE.
Now here in the top right-hand side of the map, our blue Protoss player, he is Goblin. Heading to another game 3. You mentioned the map is Altitude, but even though we haven't had all 3 game series today, we've had a fair number. And I feel like even the 2 game series, they've all been pretty interesting, and they've all been a bit back and forth. So I feel like we've had a pretty good day of StarCraft so far.
I'll buy you on the interesting count for your dragon. I don't know that Hellraiser versus Raynor was back and forth.
I think there were some back and forth moments in that first game where I think there was a legitimate moment where I thought Hellraiser was ahead in that first game.
Fair enough.
It wasn't after the Proxy 3-gate stuff had failed and everything. There was a moment where Raynor was going for the counterattack, and it really did feel like Hellraiser was actually getting into a pretty good spot with his immortal rebase setup and everything, and he defended. Here, Raynor was just on a low worker count. Actually, before he decided to go to double Stargate Phoenix as he was getting all in.
You know what? That's actually fair. I kind of, in my mind, I'm like, the 3-gate didn't really work. Yeah, okay. Yeah, but you know what? You're right. When he recalled the Immortals home and the pressure really didn't work. Yeah, absolutely. He was looking okay. But now we're moving into this Altitude game, and not only is this probably the best map for Goblin because it's a big map, it's also, he makes Phoenix, and Phoenix fly at a certain altitude, so you have that. But there we go.
I like it. I'm a fan of that one. Yeah. You know that I'm feeling a bit tired. I have to take some medication and stuff to like that. I'm like drugged out sleepy right now, but that hit in just the right spot for me.
There we go. Fear Dragon, I do have a question for you, right? We've seen two very similar games. We saw Reaper Hellion aggression into Phoenix play from Goblin. But you've seen two games of Goblin right now, and you're his coach, and you got to pull him aside a little bit, and you're going to tell him, this is how you want to win game 3. Like, if you have one message for him, like going into this game, what's it got to be?
I honestly think that it's stick to your guns. I actually like that he's still going for Stargate, and I would say it's stick to your guns and you got to just execute cleanly. Because I do think that even though there were some like decisions and stuff that we talked about with game number 1, where HeRoMaRinE was committing a bit more to the attack, and like he was a bit more all in, not going for upgrades, there were things HeRoMaRinE was doing that was enabling Goblin for sure. I do think overall Goblin just showed that he also had a pretty clean Phoenix style, and I think if he can do it well, when Goblin nails it and basically hits all of his marks, and I think he's capable of that, I actually think he is quite scary as a PvT player. And I do think he is capable of beating HeRoMaRinE in one of those kind of games if he's able to play his A game. So honestly, it's my advice, which, you know, take it or leave it, would just be Goblin, be Goblin. Like, do your practice. You have come to this point because you're actually quite good with this style and everything. And I think he is capable of making something happen with it.
And in fairness, I want to say in 2020, Goblin mode entered the Merriam-Webster English Dictionary. So what I'm hearing here is just maintain Goblin mode.
Maintain Goblin mode. Yes, I feel like Goblin mode may have a double meaning here between both. I think all of Roddy's little Roddy's little kids, I feel like definitely have entered degenerate Goblin modes, and I know that Goblin, having seen him in many a Twitch stream at what I can only imagine is 5 in the morning for him, he's definitely entered Goblin mode in multiple ways, and hopefully it's going to be in the most positive way, as he is going to be dealing with one of these little fun Marine Widowmine pushouts, and he spots it out with the Phoenix, a very important scout, but also takes a lot of chip damage on that first Phoenix.
And this is always so scary, right? Because on the one, that's an Artosis pylon right there. That's going to be a canceled or delayed Phoenix. It's always so scary with pushes like this, right? Because this is everything designed to kill a bunch of Phoenix. Although, of course, you know, we do have to give Goblin credit here. HeRoMaRinE has tried to move out with that pretty much every game this series, kind of the dedicated anti-Phoenix play. And every single time, I mean, Goblin has hung on against the aggression very well. In fact, I think what we can consider some pretty decent advantages for himself. But this one feels a little harder, right? With the Widow Mines, the lack of detection. You want to sack units against this? Not really. And we don't have a Robo. So maybe you build an Oracle, but you don't really want an Oracle in this game state. So HeRoMaRinE just gets away with murder. He gets a Pylon, he gets a Gateway, he gets a Cyber Core, but that's kind of all he's gonna get. So, well, random Widow Mine, not gonna get a Phoenix just yet. So now he's going to go back, right? Third base on the way. And Goblin, he proxied his third. HeRoMaRinE might think that this is actually, he hasn't even checked the third base location, but he might eventually think this is a 2-base play.
Yeah, I think all in all, I think you did a really good way of summing that up, specifically around the idea that HeRoMaRinE does get away with that entire little bit of damage, but that's also in a weird way all he ends up doing. Oftentimes you're looking on maybe do a little bit of trading. Maybe you pick, in this case, you pick off some Phoenix, or you pick off like a Sentry, or maybe a couple of the other Gateway units. You keep the Protoss a bit honest. In a weird way, Goblin also, all he lost was a Gateway and a Cyber Core. He just kind of just remakes those. Maybe it's a bit annoying because...
Why is he looking here? He hasn't even checked the third.
That's interesting.
Like,
yeah.
Complete.
This is just the biggest brain bit of like star sense that I've ever seen. I mean, maybe they were rallied in to check the third a different way, but like, why are you even checking that spot at this point in the game?
That's, you know, he must have seen something around like how many units Goblin had, or thinking like, oh, I haven't, like, normally you take this low ground third. Maybe he's played Goblin and he's taken that top left base or something before. That is some really killer game sense, or some really great luck. I'm not sure which one, but either way, HeRoMaRinE now knows about the third base location, which is really big, because otherwise it actually is entirely possible he'd be massively misreading this game as some kind of like Phoenix charge lot all in or something along those lines.
I mean, I'm still a little worried about this Phoenix charge lot timing. The big deal, of course, that altitude, as nice as it is for Goblin, because it means that any sort of Terran push is not. Oh, he's gonna get a tank here. Very nice. The Marines are just slow on the uptake. They also don't have stim, so they really can't respawn too quickly. But because this map is good for Goblin, right? It's massive, it's wide open, it's hard for HeRoMaRinE to run across. On the flip side, without a warp prism, without a proxy gateway, something like that, which again, Goblin doesn't have quite yet, it's hard for him to look to go punish on the other side, but that's, oh, Cyclone has to get canceled. That's a dead Phoenix. By the way, when we talk about Phoenix charge lot, we're talking about like 7 Phoenix. This would have been 12. Like, Goblin is so heavy on this Phoenix charge lot idea. And for now, it's fine. But the moment that we see Ghost hit the field, I mean, this army times out very quickly.
Oh, yeah. It's not even just the energy and stuff that you often talk about EMPs and stuff for on maybe like some of those units. So, yeah, sure, they can't lift, but also just they become paperweights that have lost like a layer of their paper. It's like laminated paper, but you've removed the lamination. It's just paper now. It's really, really tough to keep those Phoenix alive after they get EMP'd. So there is a timing window for him. He's going to be able to find the army unsieged, unprepared. There's the big stim, but are the Tarnoffs going to be able to seal the deal here?
Oh, they're going to get the tank at the start of the Marines. They're kiting backwards. A bunch of them are getting lifted, and HeRoMaRinE's trying to make the best out of this, but he's actually fairly near the Protoss situation as well. So I think we're going to see Zealots coming from the backside soon enough. There we go. Flank comes on in, but at this point, there's no sandwich anymore. And the Zealots have to run away. God, that felt like it was such a good opportunity for Goblin, but he was slow on the warp in. Like, imagine you warp in however many gateways worth of Zealots out off this third base. You run in, the Zealots do not live for quite a while, and then it's a full surround. But instead, HeRoMaRinE, he finds a base to punish, and that was almost so good for Goblin, and instead it's just a disaster.
Yeah, I actually think this may just be a bit of a nail in the coffin over here. Losing the third base is definitely not something Goblin could afford to have happen, but it's also combined with the fact that Goblin lost all of his key units. The Phoenix are all basically dead. There were 3 Phoenix left over, I think, at the end of the fight, and Goblin is going to try and go for basically a follow-up all-in, but I love this. This is such a smart move here from HeRoMaRinE. You may think, oh, well, there's Phoenix on the map. They're going to be able to kill some of the medevacts. It's like, yeah, they may kill 1, maybe 2 on the retreat, but HeRoMaRinE gets back over to his reinforcements pretty safely, and he has a third base to defend. He has upgrades to work with. He has a Ghost Academy that he's starting up. He's going for 2-2. He has both the army advantage, he has the economy advantage, and he has the upgrade advantage. Like, what does HeRoMaRinE not have going for him right now?
Yeah, these Zealots, like, they don't do anything. You saw them run in. It's like, ah, yeah, Zealots underneath the warp prism or the medevacs that have to drop. Okay, maybe that's something. They didn't kill anything. And this one Colossus is going to try to have to do so much, but it's just going to go down immediately. Zealots, they're not able to buffer. That's their job. Their job is to allow the Colossus to shoot. But no extended thermal lance. The Zealots were holding a little bit too far back. And Goblin, I think we characterize this as a series of missed opportunities. He played so well in game 1,